Oh my god. Oh, oh my god. This is ridiculous.
Brad, you're walking on water. You are Beer Jesus.
I'm the Beer Jesus. I just want to say, this is probably one of the best experiences of my life.
For the last 7 years, Brad and I have been travelling the world hunting down the best breweries and beers, as well as searching out the most amazing places to enjoy them.
Drink it in!
We've met homebrewers in the Arctic to help judge at their beer competitions. We've witnessed the pure insanity of China's own Oktoberfest. We've got lost deep inside the mazes that make up Czechia's lager cellars. We've travelled halfway around the globe just to taste the best IPAs fresh at source, and lots more besides. These adventures have taught us amazing things about beer, brewing, people and the environment, and how they all come together to create a culture we've fallen in love with. So join us as we explore the world through the medium of beer. Meeting master brewers, digging into beer history, brewing collaborations, and trying to act sober against all the odds. Through our travel documentaries, beer school episodes and sofa sessions, we'll teach you everything you need to know to enjoy beer at its best, and to appreciate the wonder that is the world's favourite alcoholic drink. We're here to show you that at the end of a long day, all you need is love and beer. Welcome to the Craft Beer Channel. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Craft Beer Channel live show with the wonderful Elusive. Bradley, I'm glad you're off your bike.
I'm off my bike. I've got most of the beers. And I've had them in the freezer. I had to put them in the freezer very quickly because it was really hot outside, Johnny. And don't tell anyone, but they weren't all refrigerated.
Oh my god!
Park fever.
Well, I'm glad you could track down the beers after Johnny made a mistake that you'd have thought he'd have learned from the other 20 times this has happened, where I have managed to order myself the beers. And not Brad. So yes, apologies for that, but it did lead to some very interesting Instagram stories, which I spent about 10 minutes today trying to turn into a little video we could show on the live show.
Oh.
And with everything else going on, gave up quite quickly.
Fair enough.
But if you want to see what Bradley's been up to all day, which is tracking down the beers through South London, head to our Instagram page because it's all there.
The Beer Hunter. Was that someone else? Was that Michael Jackson? Was he the Beer Hunter?
Yeah, Michael Jackson was the Beer Hunter. Yeah, you can still watch his episodes on YouTube, so we definitely shouldn't try and take that name.
Apparently, I sound good, Johnny, but you sound low.
I sound low, a bit low. Well, we can fix that. Do I sound a bit hotter now?
You do to me.
Okay, too hot?
No, you sound good. Sound good to me.
Okay, good. All right. Well, let us know. At least it's not as bad as the Verdant one, the Colonel one, where we sounded like robots. Right, cool. So yeah, welcome to live show 36. It's our 36th live show of this format. I think we're pushing on 50 ever live shows now. We'll have to work it out and have some kind of party, maybe on the 16th of September, to celebrate that. If you haven't done a live show with us before, this is how it's going to work. We have a drinking order that's now on your screen. This is the order we're going to be drinking the beers. You don't have to drink them in this order. You don't have to drink these beers. There were 8 in the box, and you'd be very welcome to drink whichever beer you want. We do intend to talk about all of the beers at some point, but we had to limit it to some extent to keep this live show vaguely on track. So these are the ones that we'll be drinking. So if you want to drink directly along with us, that's what we're going to be drinking. Speaking of which, should we get the first one in the glass?
Yeah, man. It's about time, isn't it? Getting thirsty.
Well, you've earned it today. I'm not sure I have. So yeah, this is the first beer of the day. It is a collaboration between two of our favorite UK breweries, and indeed two of our favorite cask ale breweries to some extent. We will be talking about this beer once the lovely people from Elusive join us in a couple of minutes. We've just got some quick announcements to go through. I haven't even poured the beer. I just got distracted. Again, if you haven't done this live show before, you might not know that there is a way of supporting what we do on the channel this evening, which is by... I'm going to pour this whole thing. I'm definitely drinking all of this can. Which is by using Super Chat. So Super Chat, it should be up just above the comment section. And what you can do is you can pay a little bit of money, as much as you want to. That goes straight to the channel and towards us producing an independent, often amazing content. And you can ask a question or just say something you want to say, and we will stop at the next reasonable moment to answer that question or read that out and say thank you to whoever's supporting the channel. If you don't do a super chat, we might not get to it, but worry not, there's a Q&A at the end. So any just general questions that we miss, we'll try and get to during that. Feel free to post questions again during that Q&A in case we missed it. You found a craft beer channel, glass, Brad?
Yeah.
I didn't know you had one. I thought there was only one left in the world.
Got two, buddy.
Oh my God.
Two unsmashed ones.
and lots of smashed ones, or?
Oh no, I think I only had two to begin with, but
oh, okay.
I've babied them. They sort of live on a shelf, never to be touched apart from live shows.
Yeah, this is my last one, and it's the same rules. Every now and then, I find it on my nightstand because I'm a Victorian, where I've just been really tired and grabbed the wrong glass, and I'm always terrified. Right, cool. Well, so what can we say about Elusive? They're one of my favorite UK breweries for lots of reasons. One is the quality of the beer, but two is the styles that they brew. And as you'll see today, we're going to be drinking a pretty varied style, and the whole box is very varied, which isn't always the case when we do these live shows. I really love that Elusive. You know, as you'll find out as Andy tells his story, he is a former home brewer and kind of has taken that approach of brewing whatever is exciting to him, whatever is interesting forward. This whole cliche of brewing what you want to drink, which brewers are increasingly having to leave behind, but Elusive are making a great job of brewing exactly the stuff that they think is super fun and delicious. So we've got 5 incredible beers, very different beers, one deeply untrendy style, one deeply trendy style, or at least Andy's making it trendy again by brewing it lots. And we're also going to be joined by Ruth, the MD of the brewery as well, and somebody who's been in craft beer for a long time, and we'll hope we have lots of stories to tell us as well of the other breweries in the world that we all inherit. She's shaking her head. So no stories from Ruth. Anyway, enough from us. Unless Brad, have you got anything to add, or should we bring them on?
No, let's bring them on. I'm going to ask Andy what Nimrod means, because it's an interesting.
Wait. I'll add him. Then you can ask him.
Then I will.
Right, here we go. Boom. Welcome, Andy and Ruth.
Hello. Good evening.
I'm being threatened by wasps constantly. He keeps trying to come back in. If you see me run, it's probably.
Are you sure it's a wasp? It's not just one of those hoverflies.
No, he's a wasp.
Oh yeah.
I know a hoverfly when I see it. Although, I'm not immediately derailed. Welcome to the Craft Beer Channel live show, Andy and Ruth. How are we doing?
Really good, thank you.
It's a lovely evening here. It's hot, but it's good. We've got cold beer, so I'm happy.
Exactly, that's the dream. Warm evenings, cold beer. Being at Glastonbury, that'd be the other dream. But nobody, I mean, unless we're being broadcast on the other stage, probably.
Johnny, I got to stop you. You're still very quiet compared to the other guests, I'm being told.
What is going on? 1 second. Bradley, ask you a question about Nimrod.
Yes. So, Andy, where did Nimrod come from? It's making me think of Nimrod's son, the sort of Pixies lyric. But is it a biblical Nimrod, or is it something else?
This collab is pretty much Ruth's baby, so she can tell you all about it. But I think if I'm right, Ruth, Nimrod was the first gaming computer, and Oakham named it the beer for us. They came up with some ideas, and it was the first ever gaming system. Was called Nimrod, awesome. And this was their first ever collab. So that was kind of the tie-in.
This is their first ever collaboration.
Yeah. I think the Nimrod thing's partly for their first ever collab, but also because Oakham were the first ever people to use Citra in the UK. So we wanted to reference that first.
Right.
And Nimrod was the first gaming computer available in the UK.
Who made a Nimrod? I don't think I've ever heard of a Nimrod.
I don't think it was very popular.
It wasn't like an Atari Nimrod, was it? Because I definitely didn't have one of them.
I think we're all far too young, Brad, to know what about the Nimrod. Surely.
Right. Well, let's dig into this. Dig into the actual beer. So, what? Obviously, it's a mashup of Oakham Citra and Oregon Trail, right? So, how do you go about combining two beers, the flavors of which are very, very well known at this point?
From a technical point of view with the recipe, it was very much a case of looking at the two recipes side by side and merging various aspects of them. So we use the same base malt as Oakham in a low color Maris Otter. Oakham Citra's got a little bit of wheat in it, so we went with that kind of the grist of Citra, and then went a bit more. Oregon Trail is a combination of 5 hops, so we use Citra and Chinook hot side, and then we dry hop with Columbus, Simcoe, and a bit of Mosaic. So we basically took the hot side of Oregon Trail and brought that into the beer, and then went a bit more Citra heavy with the dry hop as well. So, maybe Ruth give you the background of it, but basically we brewed the beer both at Oakham for cask, and then we brewed the same recipe at ours for keg and can. And it was quite the other aspect of merging the recipes was about process. And your video at Oakham captured it wonderfully with the hop teas and all the weird stuff they do hot side to get as much as they can, that kind of Citra expression from the hop. And we kind of did our best to mimic that on our kit and bring that back into the keg and cask version. They do drink a little bit differently, which you'd expect, but I think we did a fairly good job of kind of merging the two things.
It's got one of the things I really love about Oakham Citra is that kind of prickly. Prickly, like it kind of bites at you, which I think is down to the sheer amount of hops and the flour as well. We use all flour as well, don't you, at Elusive?
We do for hot side, and then we use pellet for cold side. So yeah, and Oakham, it's all leaf, and we couldn't believe how much Citra they had in the building when we went there. But
we couldn't get that across you couldn't fit it in a lens. Essentially, how much Citra there was in that brewery. It's insane.
And Oakham Citra is a very, very small dry hop. So mostly it's all that hot side that you kind of captured. It's all goes in the kettle, in the whirlpool, in the hop tea, with a very little bit of fine tuning and polish in the bright tank.
Yeah. Ian asks, have you tried both batches side by side? How do they compare?
Yes, I have actually. We had the cask on at the tap room for our 7th birthday at the end of May, I got a chance to kind of compare the two. Very slight color difference, interestingly, despite I think we used the same base malt but from a different maltster. So there was maybe a slight color difference there. So our version was slightly paler. The flavor and aroma actually was pleasingly close between the two. I think the kind of the dare I say that the Oakham version had a bit more hop flavor, but we had a bit more aroma because we used a bigger dry hop in our kit. So they were, you knew that if you tasted them side by side, they were related, but there was enough difference between them that it was a talking point.
Cool. Well, that's the beer introduced. I'd love to hear, because like Andy, you have in some ways the classic entry to craft beer, but you did it a bit later than sort of most of the homebrewers did. So I'd love to hear your story of how you got into beer and homebrewing, and then we'll hear how Ruth joined the party.
It was very much a hobby that got out of control, and I started homebrewing. Well, actually, in the late 90s, my first attempt at homebrewing when I was living in the US for a couple of years. and really missed Fuller's London Pride. And because I used to drink, cask best bitter before I moved out there, and all I was drinking out there was mostly macro lager in our local bar. When I came home for Christmas that year, I bought one of these homebrew kits that you just rehydrate stuff and pour it into a bag and hang it up, and it does its thing, and then you drink it. They used to sell them in Boots, so it's like a dried malt extract, like a hop flavor sachet of some sort, and a sachet of yeast. I came back to the US, and me and my housemate brewed it in January, and then invited our friends around for a Super Bowl Sunday, which is the first Sunday in February every year. And our garage was kind of in California, was a steady 28 degrees. It was not the ideal fermentation climate, as I found out. And this bag had become quite bloated, and I thought that's probably fine. And of course, I opened the tap on it, and it just came out so violently, it blew the glass out of my hand and smashed the glass on the floor. And then we eventually got some out, shared it with our friends that were there, and it was absolutely awful. Then we went back to our macro lager, and that was the end of the story. But I did pick up homebrewing again in around about 2012. At the time, I really got into UK craft beer, and I really love my Belgian beer as well. We'd been spending some time in Belgium and in some Belgian bars in London, the Dovetail and things like that was near to where I worked at the time. And got into all grain homebrewing, and it was following people like David Bishop, Broadford Brewer, who's not on Twitter anymore, but he used to write a blog and tweet about his homebrewing, and he was actually one of the before Northern Monk took its current form, was brewing with them when it was in Russell's basement and so on. He was really good and very helpful, and also Adrian, who's Wishbone Brewing now, he used to be brewing every Sunday, and I was there online and was watching these guys do what they were doing, and just picked it up and gave it a go. Then I joined London Amateur Brewers, the homebrew club in London, started entering competitions and tried to kind of improve and hone my skill a little bit. And I think that club's great because the feedback is brutally honest, and that's what you need. It's no good giving your mates beer and they go, yeah, it's really cool, it's nice. You want someone that says, actually, it's full of diacetyl, it's oxidized, and all these things that you kind of learn as a homebrewer to avoid. And then it kind of, I guess it culminated in me winning the Craft Beer Co. National Homebrew Awards in 2014. And the prize was to brew the winning beer at Dark Star, which was an American red, and £5,000, which became the deposit on the kit that we've still got now. And that's kind of, that was how it all happened.
So a wild world where a homebrew competition could have a £5,000 prize. You don't see that in the UK anymore.
It really caught people's attention, of course, at the time. They did run it the year after, and a lovely chap called Gareth from Glasgow won it, Gareth Smith, and he's now Epokal Brewing in. So he eventually started out. When he won it, he was like, I'm going to go on holiday and spend the money. Because I was at the prize giving that year, because I got invited to judge and so on the following year. But he did eventually. The beer that he won it with was it was like an Orval clone. It was like it was delicious, a Brett Pale Ale, and that's what he's done with Epokal up near Glasgow. And check them out as well. So he was the other winner the year after.
Yeah, big, bold, Bretty, barrel-aged sort of classic British styles, isn't it? He's making up there. Yeah. Well, just before we go to Ruth to get the rest of the story, we've had a super chat from Vega, who says, "Will there be CBC cult robes at the festival?" Have we looked into merchandise cult robes yet, Bradley?
Not cult robes. I was trying out a prototype design today, which would be a sort of a beer bottle opener. Oh, it's not focusing. My face is too facey.
There you go. It's done it. It's done it.
There you go. As a necklace. Just thinking about this at the moment. Sort of looking at options. I'm talking to some people, makers. A guy offered money for nothing. The TV show is a friend of mine. He sort of repurposes things, makes stuff. Another guy who's a vintage guy that might be getting some stuff potentially for us. Lots of different.
Making this sound very back of lorry. I'm enjoying it.
Lots of different irons in the fire, including potentially making something very much in a fire. But we got to talk about that. That might be.
We've got to talk about the finances of that, but it would be super cool. Yeah. Right, yeah. So Ruth, tell us about your background and tell us how you landed in a Finch Hampstead industrial estate.
Yeah, so I've been working in the beer industry for 15 years now. That's a little bit worrying. So I started working in beer. So my first job was with Adnams. So I used to do sales for them, and then marketing and brewery tours and distillery tours and all sorts of things. And worked for them for about 8 years, and then thought I'd have a little play working for some other people. So went and hung out with the guys from Charles Wells for a bit. Worked for West Berkshire, and then just before lockdown, I was working as head of sales for Utopian, who I'm sure most people have heard of, but if you haven't, they make awesome lager down in Devon. And I started with them, I think, 3 months before lockdown happened, so it was a bit of a not the best timing. And so the world kind of ended. My partner and I, he works in beer as well, both sort of sat on the sofa crying, thinking we're about to be evicted, and thankfully that didn't happen. But throughout lockdown, we kind of, the first few months, we sort of watching Andy's social media, and he was at like 10 o'clock at night tweeting he'd been out doing local deliveries and bottling things and racking things, and I was sitting at home bored out of my mind pretty much, and so I messaged and said, look, can I just come and help you? Like if you give me a legal reason to leave the house, then that'd be fantastic. So I started doing some deliveries for Andy, and then I was allowed to go and brew, which was pretty cool, and help with bottling and canning. And then the tap room opened, like outside only, Scotch eggs, all of that stuff.
Good times.
It was fantastic. Many masks, much hand sanitizer, and so kind of continued working with Andy on a voluntary basis, on and off sort of throughout lockdown. And then when kind of like the great unlocking happened, actually, I kind of felt like I didn't want to leave. And very happily, Andy was very happy to let me stay. So officially joined Elusive in April 2 years ago. First of all, looking after kind of sales and marketing and events and tap room. And now just kind of get a bit bossy about everything, really. I think is the best way to describe it. But mainly sales is my happy place, which I do know makes people who do production very confused, because if you keep selling the beer, then they have to make more of it, and apparently that's a problem. But yeah, mainly look after sales, marketing, tap room, ops, don't burn the place down, all that kind of stuff.
So, I mean, we'll talk about Oregon Trail when we get to it, but I guess that beer has not turned things around. That makes it sound like things were going wrong, but it has changed perhaps the ambitions of the brewery to some extent, or the approach you have to take. Is that fair?
I mean, I think for us, Oregon is a really sort of big part of the business. I think it's certainly, for me personally, I think it was kind of the right beer as a consumer. It was like the right beer at the right time. I mean, it's a very sort of nostalgic beer. It really reminds me of the beers I kind of started drinking sort of 10, 15 years ago, when I sort of first kind of discovered that beer wasn't all brown. I think that kind of had a real impact during lockdown. Now we really sort of, and it's kind of taken off from there, we really struggle to keep it in stock. We canned a batch last week, probably going to run out in about 2 weeks. So it's a real kind of, it's a battle to kind of keep it available and also have enough sort of space in the brewing schedule to have enough variety to keep people interested as well. So it's a fun balancing act.
Yeah, I get a brewery that small. It could be, I guess, kind of tempting to go all out Oregon Trail, but a lot of what keeps regulars and beer geeks and stuff excited is the other stuff. So it's, I guess,
people like new things. I think it is a real balance, but I also think the thing about Oregon that's so lovely is it has allowed us to do sort of collaborations that are inspired by it as well. So there's other ways to keep Oregon fans happy. Yeah.
Super. Well, I think it's time for beer number 2, if we're going to keep up with the schedule. Yeah, go on, Andy. Go on. Get it down here. So this is the drinking order in case anybody at home needs to run to the fridge. We're going to be moving on to pinball. which I'm very, very excited to try. So give me 1 second while I grab that all the way out of my brew fridge.
We had a question, guys. Why the name Elusive? Where did that come from?
It came from my gamer days. So a lot of our branding is 8-bit pixel artwork, as you can see from the cans that are in your fridge or in your hand. My original gamer tag on Xbox was going to be Elusive or Play Thereon, and it became Elusive in a foreign language, Estonian, which is Tabamatu, which is my online handle for everything. And when we started the brewery we did the first commercial beer with Weird Beard in 2013. We basically had to come up with a name because Greg wanted to put a logo on the can. So that was the name, Elusive. And a friend of mine, Kerry Jones, created the logo and the original branding for us, including the Lord Nelson and the Level Up and a few others. We kind of run with the brand ourselves now, but that's where the name came from.
That's dead cool. Who does all the artwork? Is it the same person every time, or? Right. Yeah, awesome.
So we do all the artwork in house. It's a mixture of kind of licensed images that we like and feel fit the brand, and then we top them up with hand drawn.
You put like a sort of 8-bit filter over everything, make it look.
No, I mean everything it's all the 8-bit images are. Or pixel, they're all hand drawn. If someone is really good at like Affinity and can teach me how just to like put a filter over it and turn it into squares, that would save me a lot of time.
I was joking. I know it's not that simple, but I think it's brilliant.
So Ruth drew this by herself. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Did you really?
Yeah.
And it's also like
it's terrifying.
I'm trying to think of how many individual clips that is.
Is this what you see when you close your eyes? Is it like
a little bit?
A terrifying demon hop.
Are the teeth that sharp on the original? I don't remember them being quite so menacing.
I mean, I think they are. Although I'm pretty sure that when I first kind of drank Citra, so how long has it been around? 10 years, something like that. I'm pretty sure the hop face on it then was a little bit more approachable.
They went through a rebrand to make them look angrier.
It's got a little bit.
They added red to the labels, and
You do realize at some point you're going to have to put all these together into a computer game, and these are like the sort of end of level bosses or something. Great.
I do really want to have when the internet stops working and Google gives you a dinosaur to play with. I'd love that, but with Andy jumping over kind of cans or barrels. Again, anyone who can make that, we'll swap IT skills for beer very happily.
There might be somebody in the comments that could do that for you. You might have to come through on that. So I'm getting some. Everybody's getting their directions right. I've never been able to get this right. I can't. That's Brad. I'm learning.
Oh, I thought when you said directions, I thought you meant like is it the Namco cheat code or whatever that you did like the button bashing in a certain order and then it would like unlock stuff. Does anyone remember that?
Yeah, that's the up, down, left, right, A, B.
Yeah.
That's the one. You should call it up, down, left, right.
We've actually done that one.
Really? Oh shit! Okay.
We called it cheat code, and it had the code on the can. Yeah.
Yeah, of course you have. Duh, that's obviously. I haven't seen that one. That's great. Konami.
Right.
Konami. That's what it was.
Tell us about mild. Right? Why do you love mild? Why have you brewed a mild? Let's start there.
Ruth, do you want to take that one?
Is it another Ruth special?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think for us, as a team, we really like more traditional styles. Like we do a lot of sort of modern American beers, but always try to have a balance of having those and something a bit more traditional. So we still brew most of our beers in cask, keg, and can. We've got a really diverse kind of audience, so we'd like to have a lot of breadth in the range. So we first brewed Microball last year. Sorry, this is also the beer with two names, we should say. So it is actually called Microball. However, the artwork has got the word pinball across it, which gets very confusing. So we're just going to give up at some point and call it pinball.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, it's not. It's not you. This is definitely us.
Yeah.
We'll just change name to pinball and have done. I think. I think we brewed this first time about a year and a half ago, something like that. Andy's going to nod.
I think so. Yeah.
And that was when Miles was having a little bit of a resurgence. And Boxcar was shouting about it a lot, and lots of other people. And we brewed a mild, and it went really well. And actually, the main thing we found was that we really loved drinking it. We went to a big tap takeover at one of the local pubs that we supply, and all the team just drank 4 or 5 pints of mild, and we're really happy. So we do brew it. We brewed the latest batch for Cameras mild in May. So it's not a beer we have available all the time, but probably brew it 2 or 3 times a year. From a technical perspective, it's quite nice because it's a relatively quick beer, so we can like squeeze it in between other brews if we've got a bit of space. So that's nice. And actually, it's just a really lovely kind of easygoing style. If you just want to sit and have a pint and not kind of, you don't always have to think about it. You just want to have something that tastes nice and drink and chat and kind of get on with it. I think that mild fits that box really well.
It's an issue. Like I sort of, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love mild, and this is a beautiful mild. We'll talk about the flavors in a second. It's an interesting one when craft breweries go for these, the really drinkable, the really pintable kind of style. I feel the same when it comes to like adjunct lagers, like sort of corn lagers, rice lagers, stuff like that, where because of the price point of craft, you have to charge a premium for a beer that is perceived as not so premium. So how's it been received by your drinkers? Are they super excited to be able to taste like an Elusive mild?
I'd say certainly locally, like particularly where the beer's on draft and on cask, then that's certainly the reaction. And it's also partly kind of down to another one of our locals and very good customer, the Nag's Head in Reading, very often tweets and shouts saying that he always has a mild on cask all the time, and couldn't get hold of it for various reasons. Well, that's cool. We can definitely do that. And actually, the response from our kind of consumers and other pubs was really positive as well. Don't think we could quite justify having it as like a permanently available beer, but it's nice to have in the mix.
But so it's coming back every now and then, is it? It's like a seasonal kind of vibe.
Yeah, probably once a quarter, something like
that. Right. Well, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on the mild. I don't think we asked about people's thoughts on Nimrod as well. So sorry if you've got thoughts on that delicious beer. Do hit us up in the comments. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think of this. So every week, every live show, I do emoji tasting notes for the beers. And it's pretty difficult, let's be honest. And I don't think I've got this one right. I wanted to imply it's much less. It's like it's a ruby mild, right? It's not a sort of a dark mild.
Yeah, it's definitely ruby. Yeah.
So the coffee couldn't be more wrong. The chocolate maybe. The berry bit is where I got closest, but it's definitely not blueberry. But that's the only berry. The other berries were raspberry or strawberry. So blueberry was, I think, blackberry is probably where it comes. What would come closest? What I like, as soon as you smell this beer, it reminds me of lots of the classic milds, like the well, actually, the one that came to mind actually was the Green King one, which is actually a pretty decent beer.
Yeah, I love that beer.
the best beer I make.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and so it's got that really nice kind of sweet, almost like cola kind of flavoring to it, like a spicy, fruity kind of thing to it. What is that coming from the yeast? It feels like there's a decent yeast character to it.
I think a lot of that flavor comes from the malts we get. So we use some quite nice malt in this. We use Simpson's DRC, which is their double roasted crystal, and we use Dingham Special B, and both of those malts have like a raisin or cola vibe to me, to my palate at least. And I think that flavor comes from the malts. We also use Bramlin Cross hops which are known for their kind of blackcurrant vibe. So that's that kind of fruitiness in there. The yeast is we use a WHC Labs Bond, which is an English ale strain, and as Ruth said, it's just one of these yeasts that rips through, and 3-day fermentation. We can turn this beer around in a week, which is great for when we're so squeezed in production. That makes Ruth very happy when we turn beers around that quickly. It's very fast fermenting yeast. It's got a slight ester to it, definitely, but we ferment it quite low to keep that in check. So I think the flavour and aroma are definitely more about the hops and malt than the yeast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely now that you said like DRC, I'm definitely getting that kind of raisiny character to it. I mean, it's a beautiful malt. We've used it in quite a few homebrews that we've done because we put it in our Imperial Stouts, we put it in our red IPA. You know, it's a great way of getting that kind of raisiny, caramelly kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Brandis, what do you think of the beer? I can see why you'd want to neck this by the pint. It's great.
Fantastic. I'm just wondering, my girlfriend, before she left, gave me, she knows I love oh my God, it's not going to focus, is it? She knows I love cola stuff. So she gave me this. I've never seen one of these before. A cola Mauam. So I'm wondering.
Are you about to do some live beer and food matching?
Oh, maybe. But aren't they incredibly chewy? I'm not really a Mauam guy. I'm more of a Haribo guy.
I can't remember the last Mauam I had.
Mate, it smells incredible, I must say.
I didn't expect it to be that color.
No, it's basically white, which is a bit weird.
Yeah, it looks like old school chewing gum.
It smells great.
This is the kind of content you get on the Craft Beer channel. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Colery.
Right, colery. It's very amped. It's very colery.
People are here for the Mauam content.
Yeah, man. That's actually really good. I'm not sure I've ever had a Mauam before. It's very chewy. Very chewy, Johnny. I feel like I might lose the filling.
Well, yeah, or create some more. One of the two.
But the beer is fantastic. Sorry, not to detract from the beer drinking experience. I love mild. They're great. And as someone said earlier, it's great. I don't know who that was. Someone said it's great that they can go to your brewery, drink a pint of this, pick up some beers, and go home safely.
Yeah, so that was Ben in the chat. Hello, Ben. He's a regular. Pops in. Yes, yeah, it'd nice to have a lower ABV option. Definitely, and this has got a lot of flavour for 3.7.
Yeah, it's absolutely banging.
This is a great comment here from Craig about craft mild, because I think when craft breweries make traditional British styles, and there was quite a lot of, I guess, resistance when bitter had a little moment as well, and lots of breweries like Daya and Cloudwater and Verdant were making bitters, and people are like, oh, why are these breweries bothering? It's not what they're good at. It's not what possible thing does this serve? And I think exactly what Craig said, one of the most important things is it gets people talking about those styles and trying cask again, because that's, I think, the biggest barrier is the reputation that cask ale has. We talk about it being, often being, old or stale or acetic, but that's not always the case. It's this fear we have of it. And it's great that beer styles like this, they might drink the Elusive one and then see a mild on cask and go, well, I'm going to give that a go, whereas they never would have touched it before. How much of your production is going into cask?
I think a lot less than it kind of used to since we've started canning and really found a lot of people who want to sort of buy cans. Thank you so much for doing that. So a lot less than it used to. I mean, I guess it's probably pre-lockdown 50-50, Andy. Would that be about right?
Yeah, I think so. We weren't really doing any small pack pre-lockdown, save for a little bit of bottling for the tap room and a couple of local stockists. So yeah, 50-50 was about right. And now,
Yes.
What do you reckon with about maybe 10% cask?
10% cask. So we still try to do it. We do try to sort of prioritize either really good local customers, or we've got some wholesalers that we work with that work particularly good cask outlets. there's a real kind of issue in the industry that cask pricing and keg pricing are just not comparable. So you're getting a lot more liquid in a cask, but people are just not willing to pay the extra. So it's a balance for us that we want to keep making it, and we want to keep supporting the customers that serve cask really well, and we really want people who love to drink cask to be able to have cask versions of our beer. But there's like a commercial balance.
From a financial point of view, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense. You'd much rather sell a keg than a cask because you know it's going to be served in good condition and you're going to make a better margin off of it. So yeah, it's tough times, and the government, obviously UK specific, the government changes haven't made a big enough effect on that sort of draft relief that they've put in. Hasn't really made much of a benefit as far as I can see. It might be different from a brewer perspective. So yeah, it's a real shame that we can't experiment and be more brave on cask and throw a lot more weight behind it. But that's, I guess, just the truth of it. We have a fifth member of the chat.
Really sorry, he was being a bit of a whiny knob.
What's this dog's role at Elusive?
Oh, so he is. He's mainly a can model, like that he's featured on a couple of beers now. We did a cherry wheat beer last year called Happy Land that had an 8-bit Bertie on it, and then he briefly made a sort of cameo appearance on our Adams collab as well. But mainly he likes to sort of interrupt things.
A fierce guard dog.
Yeah, he looks like it. Yeah,
is he
giant
a
tongue? If you're afraid of tongues, you.
He's a miniature sausage,
right?
With the personality of a Doberman.
I was going to say, he looks terrifying. Like he's sort of an attack dog, Doberman. Eyes are
Sorry, mate. Down you go.
I think sausage dogs all think they're bigger than they are. That seems to be
I mean, if he was a human, he'd drive a sports car. Let's just let's put it like that.
8-bit
yeah, there you go. As an owner of a mini Dachshund, I understand the sass. Yeah. What beer?
People in the comments know the name of the dog and get excited.
What beer would he drink?
Beer is not very good for dogs. Hops are poisonous. Bert likes gin and tonic.
Okay, sure. Any specific gin?
Actually, I'm the one drinking it. No specific gin.
Right. Any gin will do.
Any gin will do.
Except hopped gin, presumably. Yeah.
There aren't very many of them hot because heat and distillation and bitterness. I can talk to you about distilling hops for quite a long time, but it's probably not
as a former Adams employee, or yeah.
Yeah. Done it. Where's the West Parks? We did a beer and gin collaboration, which was really fun. So we did a beer with certain botanicals infused, and then we did a gin that was the same botanicals and some of the hops. But getting the balance right is really difficult because if you distill a hop, then you lose all of the aroma. You just get a really weird bitter taste. So use like a rotovap or some other form of sort of low temperature distillation for hops is better. If anyone wants to make hop gin,
there you go. The gin on hop gin. Brad, if you just turned your light up, I need to do the same. It's actually
I've just changed the light in the room.
We should
a little bit too moody. Yeah.
I feel like because we didn't get to have a podcast yesterday, you should explain, Brad, what you've been doing this week. Perhaps where you got your bronchitis from.
I'm pretty sure I've got bronchitis. I won't go into why I think I've got bronchitis because it's not very nice. But I've been to Stonehenge. I've been to summer solstice. Can't even say summer solstice. Apparently there are about 8,000 people there. Went camping.
Wow.
You're not actually allowed. I tried to make some content there, but you're not actually allowed to drink sort of anywhere remotely near the stone circle because it's a religious site, which is fair enough.
It's a religious site.
It's a religious site. It's like
a Druid site.
It's a Druid, yeah. It's an ancient monument and it's a religious site. So summer solstice is a religious ceremony for druids and such. So yeah, I went to watch the druids do their thing. Lots of marriages going on, Johnny. It was quite beautiful as the sun was coming up. Incredibly hazy. I will post some of this stuff on Insta, but I felt like I'd sort of missed the boat now. But I went to bed at like maybe 1:32 in the morning. Woke up at 4 in the morning to watch the sunrise. And it was just spectacular. People were out. I stayed in my little van, but people were out dancing all night to bongo drums and all sorts of different drums, Johnny. Yeah, man, it was great. But what did I drink now? I had some Keller pills that I took with me.
Let's point out this is a great comment here.
No fluids, just druids. I mean, there's definitely some fluids being consumed, and lots of other substances and such.
Religious substances, incense, others.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was beautiful, Johnny. I took my shoes off for probably about a 24-hour period, and just was touching the stones. I thought it was going to heal me, Johnny, but I think I've come back with a viral sort of bronchitis type sitch.
So your next thing is you need to go to like Bath and drink the water in Bath, and then you'll get, I don't know, something from that, and then you could go up to Buxton.
Yeah, some sort of waterborne. Yeah, I don't know what. It was kind of amazing. I think we should all probably go next year. One of the best things I've possibly ever done was going to Stonehenge. Apart from obviously my mission today to get all the elusive beers. That was also great.
I'm just glad that enough people stock elusive that it was very nearly possible. Have you got a beer plan for when we have Lord Nelson?
Me? Oh, well, I not to sort of talk about other people, but I got the Thornbridge collab with Budvar. Checkmate.
Oh, cool. Nice.
I've been wanting to check.
I might give that a go, although I might just take a breather because I'm feeling a little bit ropey. So I'll probably just take a breather, just drink a little bit slower. Yeah.
You're not going to get a syringe and try out
those
check
shoes just flew. Wow. These are harsh comments. Yeah. I don't have asthma, but I've been struggling to breathe. So I've got my girlfriend's spare inhaler with me in case I, go into some sort of
really choke
or something. But yeah.
We'll have 111 on speed dial.
Mm-hmm.
Which I had some experience of this week as well. Bradley, while you're front and center, tell us about this.
Yeah, so obviously Johnny's got a Brudio, which is beautiful, but I don't have anywhere currently to film at home. So I persuaded Johnny that I needed some wooden panels because I'm redoing my front room anyway, and you can't really see it, but this is like a sort of plush velvet sofa, and I've got these wooden paneling which I need to affix to the wall, and this is going to be the London base, Johnny, when we need to film in London, and if I do some lowbrow content and stuff as well. So
it's currently just leaning up, like
it is. Sorry, it is just currently leaning up behind me. So if it falls on my head, I'll definitely be trying to call 111. Or Johnny, you can call 111 and tell them.
Do you know what? If that falls on you, I might call 999 rather than the people that inevitably just end up saying you should have called 999.
Well, true. They're actually not that heavy. It's MDF.
The back of your head will be the judge of that.
The thinnest. I've got a hair helmet, mate. Don't worry about that. This has sustained lots of injuries over the years. And I'm still ticking, just about.
You're still here.
That's it's the thinnest slivers of oak on it, Johnny, that you've ever seen. I think it's thinner than a bit of paper. It's very, very thin.
So it's like gold leaf, but oak leaf.
Yeah, while we're on the subject, let me just go and grab a little bit.
We saw the shorts briefly. That's what I was trying to get to. That's what I wanted to see. We've got the shorts out. Oh, Andrew, stop. Have you been taking the mushrooms? This is remarkable work.
It's doing the too. It's too narrow a plane, Johnny. Too.
If you get out a shot, then almost.
Look at how wafer thin that is.
Yeah, that's not a lot of oak, is it?
That's such a minimum amount of oak, but it does look nice.
That almost feels like it's more effort to make the oak that thin,
right? I don't think oak is that much of a premium that you need to make it wafer thin.
Well, the Ukraine war, didn't know that was so hard to say.
Yeah.
Has pushed up the price of solid wood. No, it literally put my friend out of business. The price of oak.
Oh shit! Was that what did it?
Yeah, and now he's building the craft beer channel up. So silver linings for us.
I thought through that. I don't know if anyone heard what you said there, Johnny. Sorry.
We're building a craft beer channel app, and a former carpenter from North London is building it.
Jesus.
He just likes building stuff. Yeah. Right, we need to get on to the next beer, and we need to talk more about Elusive. We've done the podcast thing of going wildly off track.
You provoked me into the random chat, Johnny.
Yeah, I'll take the blame for that one. I'm not gonna pin that one on you. While we pour the next beer, sorry, Barry has a question, but also there was a question before. Yes, for Ruth. There we go. Oh, it's both Barrys. Ruth, what was the biggest learning curve when you started in beer, wine, spirits? Well, I guess those are three separate questions, but
they're all quite different. I think the interesting thing about the beer sales, like on trade, like selling beer into pubs, is I've actually found it a lot easier than my previous sales roles. Just because you're selling a thing that someone wants, so like a pub has to buy beer from somewhere, and therefore it's about kind of showing that you have the best product, or I think the most important thing is actually people buy from people. So if you're not a dick, that tends to work quite well. I might be a dick sometimes, so I can't guarantee that all the time. But it's a really crowded market. It's actually like, I think, so firstly, it's like, I think a lot easier than some other types of sort of cold selling. But secondly, I think it's how much sort of your personality and your sales style really matters. Normally the way to tell if you're doing well is sort of an on-trade drinks rep, is if the manager will come out of the office to see you. So when you go up to the bar and you say, is Jodie here, whoever it might be, that person's not in a meeting, they're on site, you know exactly where they are. When someone goes to go and get them, if they come down to see you or if they don't, that's kind of like the sign of if you're doing well or not, I think. So, yeah. So personality.
Yeah, it's still quite a people industry. We buy from, to some extent, we buy from people because the choice for a pub is extraordinary, right? So it is a lot.
If you're a free trade pub, if you're a free trade pub in London, then you can literally buy from any brewery in the UK if you choose to. It must be quite overwhelming sometimes, I think. So actually, I think the quality of the beer is obviously the most important thing. I think would be really arrogant if we said we were the only people in the industry making really good beer. There's loads of people making extraordinary stuff right now. And therefore selling is a little bit more than that, I think.
Yeah. Right, cool. Well, let's talking about quality being the most important thing. Let's have a chat about this beer, which I'd imagine a lot of people that hadn't heard of Elusive became aware of Elusive because of this beer, which, aside from just being a wonderful bit of labeling, there's some awards on it now, is an incredible version of a beer that was, by the time you brewed it, like very much out of favor, right? So it was kind of it must have been weird, 2015, everybody was making this style, and when you first brewed this in, what would it have been, 2020, 2021?
Late 2019 was the first batch, but we didn't can it until during the pandemic, so it was summer 2020.
So you'd have been one of the few breweries making this style by the time you actually made it.
Yeah, it definitely felt. Yeah, it felt like it was a bit of a. The Merc had taken over at that point and was pretty ubiquitous.
So why did you want to make a Westie?
So the Oregon Trail, as I said, was first brewed in late 2019, and it was brewed for. We give them a shout out on the back actually of the can. It was brewed for the West Street Ale House in Ferrum, who's a good customer of ours, and they'd approached me about brewing a beer for their beer club. They were going to launch a loyalty club, and wanted to brew a collaboration with one of their suppliers, and they got in touch about brewing a West Coast IPA. I had we were already planning when we had a homebrew recipe I wanted to dust off and bring back, and that was a good excuse to do that. So we first brewed it in late 2019, and yeah, I mean it was a single batch. We did cask and keg. I think they took a good chunk of it, that first batch but it was pretty well received overall. And when we got into the pandemic, Ruth was helping out, as she said then, and was very much. She gave a very modest answer to your question earlier, but it's very much driving the business forward. And we kind of thought, well, if we're going to start canning, what beers are we going to can? And we really hit a sweet spot with this in terms of the nostalgia during lockdown, I think, which Ruth alluded to earlier. And it just flew. We canned 4 beers in our first month or two. We were contract canning back then, and this outsold them all. And we did it again, and it kind of just became our flagship beer by default. And Ruth's view was that we should really try and get behind this beer and use it to grow our volume and grow our business. And it was Ruth's idea to enter it in the World Beer Awards, and it won the UK's best IPA in that competition, which is quite a stiff competition. It's kind of gone from there, really. I mean, it's taken over. It's got its own little thing. As Ruth said, we can some this week, and it will last a couple of weeks, and we'll go around again. And it's just when you're drinking this beer, when you're ordering it from our website, it's always fresh because we can it every 3 or 4 weeks.
So I can see the comments are mounting up. We definitely will get to them. It was late 2019, feels about right, because I remember I came to you when I was writing A Year in Beer, so it would have been just under a year later, and I think you recently started canning it. And I remember chatting to you, and you were really surprised by the love it had received, because also didn't you say that like a malt was out of spec or something, and it was on the first batch, and it was not quite the beer that you meant, but everybody had gone kind of mad for it.
Yeah, it actually was quite a little bit darker than intended with the first batch. And yeah, it's although we have also changed the recipe slightly. I saw one of the questions about crystal malt, which we did have in it. We don't anymore as caramel. But yeah, it was the first time we brew, because everything we brew, we were brewing for contract canning. Everything we brew now entirely, in fact, is now double brewed. And the first work when we ran it off was almost red because there was some contaminated malt where they switched products in the mill at malts to. We had like a bag of Maris with some dark malt in it, and it kind of turned things red. So then we went super pale with the second grist and created a beer that was kind of ambery. But yeah, it was a little bit off spec, but I don't think there's any worse for it. The classic West Coast were all that kind of deep golden, maybe even amber color anyway. So, but these days it's fairly pale in color, as you can see in your glass.
When we did our homebrew collab with Russian River. We talked a lot about the malt with Vinny, and he talked about the changes that he made switching from Crystal to Munich. And then I think now they've recently announced that either the Munich's been drastically reduced or they've removed it. Like they've just recognized that beer is having to get paler and paler and paler to sort of suit the modern palates.
Yeah, I think I mean, if you drink Pliny these days, it's almost lager coloured, like super, super pale. And that's very much the modern West Coast from my experience of drinking them out there.
Yeah.
All those days of Crystal are gone.
You look at the perhaps the breweries that didn't do that, pretty much in the same town, you've got Bear Republic, who, essentially nearly went out of business and had to be rescued and bought. And that beer, as far as I know, never changed. It was still super sweet and crystal heavy, and I guess was falling out of favor. So even the absolute classics have to change a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Let's dig into the comments about this. So sorry. Yeah. So Stuart Evans was first in with. So you've taken Crystal out now?
Yeah, so the first recipe of it had some crystal T50 in from Simpsons, which is kind of a light medium crystal. We now use Simpsons caramel as a substitute for that, and that's just dialed that kind of toffee caramel thing down slightly and made it a little bit lighter. The rest is all Marisotta, and there's a little bit of rye malt in it, which is a secret ingredient I don't tell anyone about, but it's on the can.
So why is that rye there? What's that offering in a Westie?
So we use pale rye malt, and it's this beer. So hot side we use Columbus and Chinook, and I love that kind of resiny dankness. It's kind of South London bus stop vibes that you get from Chinook, and the rye malt, the kind of spiciness in that just pushes that note forward. And in the dry hop, the dry hop is a mix of in a ratio of 2 to 1, as in 2:2:1 of Simcoe, Columbus, and Mosaic, and the Columbus again is that kind of slightly dank, weedy hop, and the rye just sits underneath that, and yeah, it gives it. It's not a massive percentage of rye. I think the recipe's on our website if you want to go and have a look, but it's just enough to give it that undertone of spice that pushes those two hops forward.
So there's Mosaic in the beer.
There is a very small amount. We use So if we're brewing a 17 hect batch, we'll use 5 kilos of each of Mosaic, of Simcoe and Columbus, and then 2.5 of Mosaic. Right. It's really just a top note, because without the Mosaic, it gets a little bit too piney dank, and that Mosaic just gives it a little bit of a fruity top note, which I think just rounds it out really nicely.
Yeah, I'd always put down that fruity, like that top note, to the fact that, old school hops have also become more juicy. Yeasts have sort of enhanced that. It's just the way that everything's gone. But so there is a super modern, 2012 hop in there as well.
Yeah,
right, interesting. You'll love this comment from Herman Bloom, and I'm going to block your face as I read it. I'd had a few West Coast, didn't like them, so I decided it wasn't the type of beer for me. Then I had Oregon. Turns out I was having the wrong West Coast brews. Completely changed my mind. And somebody's had quite an exciting mispack here.
Oof.
That's right.
Enjoyed that.
You can keep that one, Richard. Don't worry.
And we've had a super chat. Thank you very much, Richard. And you're right. There's goats there. There's goats there, Andy.
Very happy about the goats. Thanks, Richard.
What's it like when you get that kind of feedback? And I think a lot of people have said, it's the goat, it's the best, it's the best example of it being made in the UK. Do you drink it and go, well, yeah, I think you're probably right, or is it hard to take that kind of positivity, that kind of compliment?
I think Ruth will tell you when we were contract canning it, and the cans would come back from the contract canner. It was I was either happy or sad, and it was mostly not mega happy. Like there was a lot of fine tuning that went on with this recipe, particularly when we were contract canning it, compensating for the process of transferring it into a giant plastic bag and sending it on a pallet to up north. And yeah, I think we finally got it dialed in with the contract canning process. We were using some hop extracts into the bag and things like that. And at that point, I became happier with it. And then we brought it back in house now to kind of change it all back again in a way and stop that compensation we were doing. I think I'm drinking this now, and this was canned on Wednesday, and yeah, super happy with it. And I think it is a good example of the style. I think when people say it's the best example of the style in the UK, that's very flattering. There's a lot of great West Coast IPA brewed on these shores, but it's nice to be mentioned in the same breath as some of those, certainly. Anything to add? What do you think, Ruth? I mean, we get that a lot of good feedback about this beer, and it certainly drives our sales.
I think I'm in a very different position to Andy, that it's not my recipe. I didn't brew it. I mean, apart from occasionally mashing, and I don't get that involved in the production side of things. I think Andy's very modest, and I get to I think it's a banging beer. And I think that Andy's brewing skill kind of deserves all the praise that it gets. But I think there is also a degree of that is the whole don't believe your own hype too much. I think the comments are wonderful and we really appreciate them, and I wholeheartedly agree with most of them. But I I think I think a balance somewhere between my view and Andy's view is probably the right place to land. If you kind of believe everything good said about you, then I don't know if that takes you in a very good direction.
But I mean, I agree. I think.
Well, we can say how good it is then. How's that?
Yeah, and I frequently tell it. I mean, I'm not sure. Even the beers that get kind of like the high-piest ratings on Untappd, I don't know if Andy's ever really that happy. Like, not like that's like the best thing, but I think that's great because that's the thing that keeps him kind of constantly trying to make things better, and that keeps the beers at the level they are. I think if you go, oh, cool, that's great, let's just do it again, then you don't improve.
No, that's very good. So Andy, is that a trait that comes from being an obsessive computer gamer? Do you replay stuff to try and beat your best sort of times and scores and whatever? Are you a complete?
I think it's definitely. I mean, before working in Brew, I was working in IT and was a kind of a problem-solving kind of person, and was dropped into bad situations to fix things and kind of leaving no stone unturned. I think I brought that into my home brewing certainly, and I think I'm very critical of everything we do, and I think that's the right way to be. As Rue said, I do. Maybe somewhere between our views is the right place. Often I get a bit of a downer on stuff for no particular reason other than I'm not entirely happy, and there's no objectivity to it. Do you know what I mean? It's just I think I can do better, and I want to do better next time and go around again. But yeah, I think with Oregon Trail, I mean, we finally the last 10, 15 brews have all been the same. Finally, at the point where I've stopped tinkering with it, and I think that says a lot. And if there were little things I wanted to change, I wouldn't hesitate to change them, and I do that constantly with our other beers. But this is in a place now where I'm very happy with it.
I think it's really interesting that it's seen as one of the goats, one of the best representations of West Coast in the UK. But actually, the more I learn about the recipe, the more I'm like, it's not a classic West Coast IPA, is it? You know, it's got rye in there, it's got mosaic, which, you know, a lot of other breweries are using in West Coast IPAs, and it's taking it away from what we consider a West Coast. Whereas actually, you know, it's playing the role that, you know, occasionally maybe Simcoe, if it was a later one, Citra would play, just adding that.
Yeah, I think the way the beer evolved was very sensory led. It was like you write the recipe, you brew the recipe, but what is in the glass, what's in the can, is what really counts and what steers it. And I think that the changes we made have been very much driven by drinking the result and making, you know, small tweaks rather than thinking about, you know, want to brew a classic West Coast, therefore we can't use mosaic or we can't use rye. It's always been about having something nice in the can.
Yeah, I mean, it's tasting fantastic. It really is. And I think, you know, like you said, that there are some great West Coast producers in the UK, and I think maybe a lot of people think there isn't a lot of West Coast IPA out there because maybe they're not drinking from these particular breweries. You know, it's breweries like Thornbridge that just make incredible, clean West Coast IPAs.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're actually, I wouldn't say we're spoiled. You know, you have to track them down, but we do have some great West Coast. But this is right up there for me. And whenever anybody asks me like what great West Coast IPAs are made, it's always, you know, it's in that tweet or it's the first in that email. It's just like Oregon Trail will never let you down, and it's remarkably consistent as well, which I think is not that easy to achieve on the scale that you guys have to make it.
Yeah, thank you. I'll give a shout out to Burnt Mill. I think they're if I want to go to West Coast, they've got a brilliant set of recipes there, and they West Coast are always banging.
Yeah, their series is Get the, and then it's like Get the Gold, Get the whatever it is. It's like all West Coast single hop IPAs, and they're incredible. The Get the Gold was we were working on our West Coast IPA recipe with Russian River, and it was so good that I emailed Charles and was like, what did you do with this beer? Because it's absolutely incredible. And he replied, chip malt. Which I didn't go down that road, but I'm still intrigued as to how that might result in. I mean, I guess that was what made it so clean and so crisp, and just not an answer I expected. But I guess all the breweries have their own ways in to create. You know, yours is a bit of rye, a splash of mosaic. Theirs is 40% chip malt, and we all find our ways of creating the beer that's in our heads. Right. Well, I mean, I would love to drink this for the rest of the evening, but I'm conscious that it's 21 minutes till I said there'd be a Q&A. So we should get onto the Nelson. And then, of course, we have an absolutely ridiculous beer to drink during the Q&A. But before we get onto that, we have the tour of the brewery to get through, which also gives us a chance to visit the bathroom. So this was... Did you film it, Ruth?
Yeah, you can tell by my masterful directorial skills.
I think you did a great job. Great editing. I think, all I had to do was add a bit of music underneath, and it was significantly better than the very hurried thing we put together for Colonel. So yeah, what follows is some would call it a tour, but I don't think Andy takes more than a couple of steps. But hopefully it'll give you a sense of what
it's a small place.
Like, yeah. And we'll be back with this setup in 3 minutes and 11 seconds.
Hi, I'm Andy. Welcome to Elusive. It's quite small, but we're going to give you a quick look round so you can get a feel for it, and we'll give you some of the history of the kit and everything else. So come and join me. We'll start down the back. So it's always really noisy here. We turn the main breaker off to kill all the noise. So this is our original kit here. It was paid for, the deposit was paid for using that check on the wall, which we'll have told you about, or we'll tell you about during today's live feed. The kit came from Elite Stainless in Swindon. It's a 8 hec or 5 brewers barrels kit, so producing 800 litres at a time. We're 600 and, by the time you see this, 18 brews in, still going strong, so nice work Elite, built up the road in Swindon. We've made a lot of changes to what's in here. In fact, we'll send some old photos, and maybe Johnny can cut them in and you can see what it used to look like when we took the keys in 2016. Me and my dad spent a couple of months kind of turning it into a production brewery. It was freezing cold. We're up on the ladders painting and all sorts, plumbed it in ourselves, commissioned the kit and put it in place ourselves as well, aside from the electrics, because we've got a qualified electrician to do that. We kind of went from there really. So down the years we've made a few upgrades. We've still got the original kettle, mash tun, HLT, CLT. The original FVs are now gone. Those were dish bottom 5-barrel FVs. We had 2 of those initially. Then we added a third. Then we added a big 2,000 litre dish bottom. We since replaced them all with these nice shiny conicals. We've got 2 20 hec and 2 15 hec FVs. The 2 15 hecs at the end there came from Beatniks Republic in Manchester. And these 2 here, the 20 hecs were bought new. Our most recent upgrade is our nice shiny canning line. We did have a canning line that we purchased second-hand during lockdown. This one's brand new from Michael Can, and it's made a hell of a lot of difference to our A, the quality of our cans, and B, the speed at which we can can them, which makes the team very happy. And also in here, just by the door here, we've got our little barrel project, which is 4 barrels. And one of those was emptied recently, which was the barrel-aged Morris Man. And this is our tap room.
Here we go.
So have a wander in. It's Friday afternoon here. We've got a couple of customers in, and Rick there enjoying his post-brew beer. And we like to. The tap room's all about kind of retro gaming and people enjoying the kind of what started our brand. So these guys are obviously playing Mario Kart. They're not fighting yet, but it won't be long. We've got a casting keg on the bar. We're in the Good Beer Guide, so come down and check us out, and we'll hopefully see you soon.
Got to go now, sorry.
There you go. Can I just say, my favourite part of that... Hi, Ruth! My favourite part of that is literally seconds into you starting to talk, Andy, a car fires up and decides to drive off. Like, as somebody that's made endless content in industrial estates, it's like as soon as you hit roll in, somebody's like, well, I'm going to go.
Yeah, every time.
But I mean, I hope that's blown some minds about the size of this brewery compared to the reputation that Elusive has. Like, literally, the number of people that would say Elusive are the best brewery in the country wouldn't fit into your brewery. You know, that's how small Elusive is. But it's a beautiful space if you can go down, and is of course in the same industrial estate as Siren, so it's a whole day out. It's even worth a hotel and visiting both on separate days, right? Brad agrees. Right. Okay. So
Sorry,
next beer.
I wasn't trying to steal the thunder there. I was just coughing up my internal organs.
Mushroom's got to get out. So we are going to be talking about the beer that sadly Brad doesn't have, which is Lord Nelson. Tell us the story behind this beer.
So this was our first ever commercial beer. So I mentioned earlier that I was a member of London Amateur Brewers, joined that club in 2012, and also members back then were Greg Irwin and Brian Spooner, who went on to found Weird Beards. Other members, there was Evan O'Riordan from Colonel, and it was a lot of breweries have been founded off the back of that club. And Greg really liked. I had a single hop Nelson Sauvin Saison that I brewed as my second ever all grain brew. And Greg was a particular fan of it, and he said, "If when we get started, can we please brew that recipe?" And they started out. Their first ever brew at Weirdbeard was named. It was. They did a single hop series, and the first beer was single hop series #1 Centennial, which was a clone of Arrogant Bastard from Stone. It was a beautiful beer. I've still got one bottle left downstairs, and this beer was. Rather catchingly called single hop series #2 Nelson Sauvin, and it was the Nelson Sauvin Saison. It was the first ever beer to have our logo on it, and it was one of Weird Beard's. I think the goal number was 9 or something like that. It was one of Weird Beard's first ever brews in 2013, and we brewed it again the following year. And by that point, I'd won that competition and decided I was going to go professional, and we'd started work on our branding, and it became what you see now, but in a bottle with the 8-bit Nelson. And that kind of lettering, it became the first ever beer that was branded with the Elusive branding, and of course have it because I've got the labels printed the wrong size, and poor old Brian at Weirdbeard had to label them and had a nightmare on the labeling machine, and got some very sweary text from Brian. Boring brown beer. Thanks, Brian. Brian's on the stream. There you go. And that was their first ever beer. Yeah, it was. And this was in their first 10 beers. So, really good, very basic recipe. It's got the grist of pretty much Saison DuPont, which is a blend of Pilsner malt, Vienna and Munich, and then single hop with Saison throughout the boil, and the dry hop, and then fermented with a farmhouse strain. We use the non-diastaticus, the Lalamond farmhouse in this beer, which is a Saison strain. Yeah, sorry, Brian. It was a bit of a nightmare.
So it says 2023 on this. So is this an annual brew now?
Yeah, we brew it every year. But it kind of, I think the last 3 years kind of varies the time of year we brew it. I think usually February-ish.
Maybe springtime.
Yeah, springtimey. And we brew it. It's an annual release now. I mean, it's. I love saisons, but they're not the easiest thing to sell. It's a pretty slow mover, I'll be honest, as a beer. So we brew it once a year to keep it kind of a little bit special and have it as a vintage, if you like, that comes out each year. And last year was the first year we canned it. This year we've obviously can everything now. So this is it goes all the way back to 2014. It was first released. So however many years that is, it's been going. So
next year will be the decade of Lord Nelson.
It will, yeah.
Imperial Lord Nelson.
I mean, it's pretty imperial already at 6.8.
That'll be an even tougher sell.
So you've taken the malt bill from Saison DuPont. What are you looking for in a great Saison, and what did you want to do with the Nelson edition?
Well, Saisons are obviously typically bone dry, and they ferment all the way out, pretty much 1002, maybe 0. So there's very little residual sugar left. So what they do with DuPont and other Saisons is they use a little bit of the dextrin malts, your Viennas, your Munichs, and so on, just to retain a little bit of body, so it's not, completely bone dry and boozy. So that's what we look to achieve with the grist, was just have enough in it that it doesn't drink completely bone dry. And then with the hop, it was just about flavour and aroma, really. So it's even bittered with Nelson, which is a bit extravagant, but it's a small addition. And then we had multiple additions throughout the boil. So there's a 60, a 30, a 20, a 15, a 10. It's just kind of layered in. And then quite a small dry hop, like 3 grams a litre of Nelson Sauvignon dry hop. So it's, a single hop. Just to give it that, that kind of classic gooseberry note that you get from Nelson Sauvignon, which is, I think mine and Bruce, it's both of our favourite hops. And it's, we really love working with that hop. And I think it suits the style really well.
I mean, everybody talks about this kind of gooseberry, vinous kind of character, but this beer really does have it. And I think it's helped by the floral character of the yeast as well. But it's really like this kind of slightly tart, slightly sweet, slightly oily. It's not tannic, but it makes you think it's going to be tannic because of that kind of combo. It is a bit like biting into a slightly tart white grape or into a gooseberry. And I think people's experience of Nelson these days is mostly in hazy IPAs, where you just won't really get that kind of character often because there's so much body, so much sweetness, so much other stuff, peachiness going on. So Saison's a great place to represent Nelson.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. You talk about the New Englands, and I think, and it's something I've said before, and it's maybe slightly contentious, but my view is that the New Zealand hops, and especially Nelson, can get a little bit lost in the New Englands. They're more delicate and more nuanced than a Citra or a Mosaic, let's say. And I think they can get a bit lost and muddied in that kind of with that super peachy yeast that you typically ferment in New England with. So yeah, I think these hops and Nelson expresses itself better in where it's got less of a yeast ester, more kind of opportunity to shine, if you like. And it's a great single hop, I think. Nelson, it can go a little bit petrolly and diesely if you get a bit too heavy-handed with it. But when used right, it's a really, really beautiful single hop and quite unique, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see you do something for the 10th anniversary, but I'd also just love this beer to be released as well because, Saison, I think at some point, people like me and Brad have said that this will be year of this will be year of that. I don't think anybody's ever gone, this will be the year of the Saison, because it's always been a tough sell, particularly in the UK. And it's a real shame because it is a beer that, much like the IPA, is strong but drinks below its strength and can present, remarkable, if not complexity, like bang for kind of buck. So it's always been kind of interesting to me that it's never had any kind of hype behind it, unless you go into the mixed firm, then heavily fruited, and whatever it is that people, particularly American breweries, try to do to Saison.
Yeah, I think, although, it's a style that you think you really need to appreciate, and it's not particularly popular. But I think if you ever see Saison DuPont in a fridge in a bar, then just sit there and enjoy it, because it's a wonderful, wonderful beer, and really that's the gold standard of the Saison style for me, and it really is fantastic and deserves a lot more hype than it gets.
It's crazy value as well. Like when I used to work at Cave Direct and on Beer Merchants, I think it's like £2.50 for a 330 ml of a strong beer. It's just, it doesn't make any sense that like a beer of that quality can be brewed, wholesaled, exported, retailed, and end up at £2.50. It is like, there's probably a craft beer channel video and like the best value beers in the world, and Saison DuPont would be number one in that regard. It's just a crazy value beer. And still like top 10 beers in the world for me.
Yeah.
And for every comment like this, there's people that hate Saison, sadly. And I don't know. Maybe it's the next Keep Cask Alive, Brad. Tis the Saison.
So just Saisons in general, are we saying now, or are you talking about?
Yeah, just save the Saison. Save on. I'll keep working on the title.
Like right near the beginning of Craft Beer Channel, I used to drink a lot of Partisan Saisons.
Didn't we all used to drink a lot of Partisan? I'm still unsure what's really happening.
You were saying like they weren't hyped. They were well hyped back in the day. Saison. All my friends were drinking Saison. The people that thought they were, all the designers I was hanging out with, were like
the Saison boys.
Saison. That was the de rigueur thing of the day. Was
it? Like,
yeah, definitely. For my group of people.
I don't know whether that's just your friends, Brad. I mean,
maybe I do have very sophisticated friends, But they definitely had the Saisons had a moment for sure.
I mean, it was.
This is like it might. I don't know when Partisan founded. It might have even been before Craft Beer Channel. How long have they been going?
Oh, they've been going longer than Craft Beer Channel. Yeah, they were like in the 2010.
So like I can remember like going down.
They their 10th birthday last year.
Was it 10?
2022, 2012 they started.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So that was like right at the cusp of when we were sort of thinking about. I remember going there right at the inception of Craft Beer Channel, and thinking how cool Saisons were and what they were doing down there was. But what's going on with Partisan these days?
Well, they've left London. I forget where they've moved to. Is it? I feel like it's near like Market Harbour, like where.
It's Leicestershire somewhere.
Yeah. And I think they still make like delicious Saisons and great beer, but it's mostly going into like the restaurant trade and like high-end restaurants rather than, kegs in craft beer bars and stuff. So I think they're making a good living and making great beer. It just doesn't appear in the places that we necessarily do. I mean, I don't remember Saison having a moment, but even Beavertown at their height of being the coolest craft beer people, it was a shock when they dropped Quail Saison. Everyone was like, "What the hell? Why would you drop that beer? It's kind of great." So I guess it was always on the coattails, and now it's fallen off the coattails. I don't know what the word is for falling off the coattails, but bring back Saison. I'd love to know how it does in Belgium, whether they feel the same. Stuart Evans is right as well. A lot of people, actually, I remember this when we first got into beer. A lot of my friends who were very into like IPAs and what was going on, but they wouldn't touch a Saison because they're like, it's sour. And that was kind of a misnomer and a misinterpretation that people had very early on, that a Saison as the Belgian style was considered sour. I don't think that did it any help. So I mean, it's a beautiful beer. Nelson is the perfect hop, I think, for Saisons, and everybody should be drinking more of it, even if it's just the Belgian classics, because it's just wonderful. Right, well, I think it's 9:00. We promised a Q&A and a giant. I'm not going to call it a pastry stout, but a giant adjunct stout. So I think it might be time. So if you've asked a question this evening and we didn't get around to answer it, please do post it again. If you've got any other questions for me, Brad, Ruth, or Andy, please do post them. We'll try to keep our answers short. It'll be quite quick fire as we get through them all. While everybody pours their delicious, ridiculous adjunct stout, some quick things we should talk about. One is we have a beer festival happening on September 16th at the wonderful Hackney Brewery. It is £18 for a ticket plus a little booking fee. You get your first pour on us, and then we're doing bottle shares. We're doing 10 collaborations with breweries, including lots of different styles. There's going to be free crisps. There's going to be delicious pizza from my local amazing sourdough Neapolitan style pizza makers, and lots of fun happening. We're going to have stalls from different food people, as well as Malt Miller have just confirmed they'll come along, and they're going to pour homebrew versions of our Russian River collab and potentially our 5 points best, I think, was the other thing we discussed. So there'll be little samples of that. It's going to be a really great evening at Hackney, and you can get tickets at tinyurl.com/loveandbeer. If you want to guarantee your question will be answered, hit us up on support our channel with Super Chat. And if you're not a Patreon, like the wonderful Andy and Ruth are, thanks, friends. You can join our Discord and join our Patreon. There's links in every bit of social I've ever done. But just head to patreon.com/craftbeerchannel and you can support what we do and keep our content independent. Also, if you want to get 10% off your next Elusive shop, because I'm sure you've done lots, you can use the code CBC10 until the 7th of July, was it?
Yeah, orders over £50 until the 9th of July.
9th of July. So, yeah, use CBC10 to stock up on Lord Nelson, Oregon Trail, and Pinball. And is there still Nimrod? Is Nimrod still?
Nimrod.
Still a bit left, yeah.
You can get all of these beers. So, yeah, that is all the announcements done. I haven't poured the beer. We're going to dive into the comments. Have we got any questions yet? Oh, yeah, here we go. Oh, wait. Is that the most recent one? Yes. Andy, you started using some new English hops like Harlequin, Jester, Olicana, and Mystic. Can you talk a bit about these?
Yeah, I really love what Charles Ferrum are doing with the hop development program. Johnny, we visited, didn't we? When sorry, he's off filling his glass, but we part of the concept for Johnny's book, and we brewed a fresh hop beer. Went down to one of Charles Ferrum's farms and saw these hops on the vine, Jester, Harlequin, Mystic, and so on. I really love what they're doing, and they've really, Jester in particular, is really developing nicely. I think it's in its sixth, maybe it's around about its 10th year of being commercially available, and has really come into its own and is super, super, almost resinous in a way if you get it fresh with their T45 pellets. Harlequin's more tropical, very nice, and we've been playing with these beers in Lyris, you mentioned, and a couple of other beers, and been very happy with them. So we'll keep doing that, and we're keen to try some of the ones they've got in development currently as well, the CF series, numbered series of hops. So they're doing some really good stuff down there, mostly in Hereford, some in Kent, in kind of developing, let's say, new worldy flavoured and aromaed British hops, which is, it's great that, craft beer has been great for American hops, but we've kind of were guilty of leaving the British hops behind to a degree. And we really need to, as brewers, to support the British hop growing industry, or it will go away, and that would be a real tragedy. So yeah, if you're homebrew, then do check those hops out. They're all fantastic.
Yeah, I can only echo that, and we talked about it in our documentary. In the meantime, it's very much a case of now or never with British hop farmers. We're losing hop farms. More closing than are opening. Opening one is incredibly hard. The most recent one to open and really go for it, Brookhouse, has gone under. It's incredibly tough, and we need to be supporting these hop growers if we want more variation in our hops, which, if you think IPA is boring, that's exactly what we need. We need more regions growing more different hops, investing in their hop breeding programs, and supporting farmers and supporting, responsible agriculture to make that happen. So there's some great British hops being grown. And like Andy said, with Jester, as they go through the generations, as they change and refine, they're getting better and better, and we just have to give them the time and the investment to do that. Lynn, I have had a couple of people ask about this. I need to do some research and get back to you. We will 100% put some info out there about hotel suggestions. Walthamstow is so easy to get to from very central London. It is 4 stops, I think, from King's Cross on the Victoria. So it is 8 minutes from King's Cross. So pretty much anywhere in London will be very attainable, but we will come up with some more local options because they'll also be cheaper up in that part of the world. Here we go. Herman, pretty sure you use double-barreled for extra brewing volumes, and I think you looked in working, but have you got expansion plans?
Yeah, we still have plans. We're seriously looking at an option that we hope will kind of come into fruition this year. But really don't want to jinx anything by saying anything now. So keep an eye on our social media channels for more information coming very soon. Hopefully, fingers crossed and stuff.
I really hope it comes through. It'll be very exciting to see you guys in a bigger spot.
I think anyone who's been to the brewery can definitely agree we need a bit more space.
It had to come up at some point. Did Andy push to include a black IPA in tonight's tasting? Tell me about your obsession with black IPAs, Andy.
I mean, it's obviously the world's best beer style is black IPA. Everyone agrees with me on that. It's no, I've always loved drinking black IPA. I love brewing it. We actually don't have any in stock at the minute. We did Midnight Oregon Trail. Midnight Oregon ran out. It was one of the fastest selling of the three, actually. Although we did package a bit less, but I pretend it was the best seller of the Oregon trilogy. And yeah, we haven't got anything in the pipeline at the moment. We'll probably brew a black IPA again. Yeah, probably, I don't know, August, September time. I'd like to get another one in. But yeah, I would have, had we had any available, would have been in this tasting for sure.
I've literally just realised that I can move people around.
Hey!
It's like the Brady Bunch now.
Hey, whoa!
Hey.
So yeah, I could have been blocking me and Brad, and I've been blocking you guys all evening. I apologise.
Carry on, it's fine.
Let's block me and Brad for the next question, which is, when will Sriracha have its moment?
Well, Mr. Spooner is on the stream. Weirdbeard, former head brewer, and he's I think the world's biggest fan of that hop. They brewed loads of Sriracha beers. I do enjoy Sriracha. I think it's got its place, it's got its application. I think sadly though, it's become really, really hard to get because it declined in popularity. They don't plant as much of it, so you certainly can't buy it on spot at the minute. Maybe if you forward contract it, you can get it. It's fascinating hop. Same as Sabro. Is Sabro going the same way as Sriracha? I wonder. I don't know. It's got that parentage and it's had its moment, and there's that kind of decline in popularity. Interesting one.
I think it'd be a real shame. Like, there's lots of people that sort of make a big thing out of hating Sabro, but it's often the same people that say that IPA is boring. So it's like, well, you can't have it both ways. You can't dislike the way that IPA is going while also criticizing new hops and new flavors that are being produced by hops. So it's, Sabro is not in every beer by any means. So we should be, if we enjoy a bit of cocoa butter shower gel with smelling like your mum, I think is something we talked about on the podcast.
I use cocoa butter shower gel sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. We all have a bit of we love to smell a little bit. Anyway, this is Morris Man's talking. Stuart asks, are you having to do triple brew days to fill your 20 hec fermenters?
No, we can do it in two. We do. So it's a bit annoying at the minute in that we've got basically 800 litre per brew kit, and we've got 1,500 and 2,000 litre fermenters. So we're brewing either double brews and liquoring back to hit the kind of 19 hec in FE, or we're double brewing but brewing short, which is really inefficient. So I mean, I'd like to replace the brew kit, but at the minute we've got bigger projects we're working on, as Ruth alluded to, and yeah, we'll get there. Excuse me. We'll get there with a brew kit, but we've got more important things to spend money on. And for now, we'll keep double brewing. One thing we will do, we do it currently on consecutive days, which we will probably look at brewing 2 brews in one day and doing some hot liquor upgrades and stuff like that. Because the plan with our project, if it goes well, is we're brewing more often, and we won't have time to get through all of our tanks without brewing twice in one day. So that's the plan.
Barry asks, if you hadn't won the Homebrewing Award, would you have tried to find funding elsewhere, or was that kind of the
the Homebrew Award was that was $5,000, and we ended up spending, that was a deposit on the kit. I've got a blog, graphbeer.com, where you can read the whole story and about how what we spent and what we spent it on, and we actually spent $55,000 to start the brewery, so that was a small amount of it, and that was money that we kind of raised ourselves. If I hadn't won that competition, I think that was a catalyst for sure. I think I was probably still have ended up starting Elusive, but that was kind of what that lit a fire under me, I think, and pushed things along.
Sorry, I've literally just managed to lose. These are where the comments were. 1 second. Yep. Here we go. I would like to know how much no sparge matters with modern systems. Go on, let's get techie for a sec.
It probably doesn't matter too much. I mean, if you look at the rims kind of systems that rely on recirc, and you can get away without sparging if you're not worried about volume. But on commercial kit, mostly the mash tun's not big enough, so you couldn't just do a single infusion and just mash and then run off and have enough work to do a boil, because you need a massive mash tun to do that. So most commercial kits, you'd always sparge just to get the volume you need for boiling. I mean, we've got a Grainfather G70 as our little pilot kit at the brewery, and that's really cute. And that's the most high-tech bit of kit in the place, actually. Or maybe the new canning line is. But you can get away without sparging on that if you depending on the size of your grain bill. So yeah, it's really depends on the kit you're working with. Commercially, you're almost always going to sparge.
Yeah, I mean, if you're homebrewing, something we learned when we did our 35-hour brew is the sparge's efficiency when it comes to those homebrews. But obviously, on a commercial scale, that's a lot of what matters. Craig asks, anything interesting to say about the yeast in Nimrod?
Yes, in that obviously Oakham have got their house yeast, and that's their house yeast, and it's not available anywhere else. And we if we'd have asked nicely, we might have been able to get some, but we used our house yeast in our brew. So the yeast that we used in all of our West Coast styles is a WHC Labs LAX, which is a Chico derivative, so Sierra Nevada yeast that was also available as USO5 and WLP 001, and from all the commercial yeast producers produce a Chico strain, and yeah, that's what we used. So different to what Oakham used.
Martin asked what you think of draft keg sellers like Perfect Draft. Could you and would you appear on those kind of formats?
It's a closed platform, so no is the answer. I think, Ruth, do you know who owns it? Is it Heineken?
Heineken own Perfect Draft. I think our scale, it's probably not the thing that we'd want to focus on anyway. But I mean, all power to people who like them, but it's probably not the thing that we would want to play in.
I've actually got one downstairs. It was from like 20 years ago when I was into Belgian beer. Me and my friend Rob bought them over in Belgium, and you could get Jupiler and some other Belgian beers on it, and we'd buy these little 5-litre kegs. But so yeah, it's pretty cool. These days, my dad likes Lowenbrau, so at Christmas I'll go and get a couple of 5-litre kegs of Lowenbrau, and we'll stick it in it, and yeah, we'll drink that on Christmas Day.
So it's a real eye-opener for me. We went to an event for my wife's family, who was sort of vaguely into beer, and we went to the house, and her cousin had one, and I was like, oh wow, you've got a Perfect Draft. Like, I'd never really sort of met somebody that did, and the whole like every individual household from the family were like, yeah, we've all got them, and I had no idea that it was this big thing for sort of people that are sort of slightly into beer, where you can get, Tiny Rebel, Camden, Lef, all this kind of like it's a much bigger market than I had any idea about. I was super naive, and I think it's cool that you can get draft at home, but it's a real shame that whenever these technologies come out, they're mostly a closed system. But I feel like maybe Thornbridge have got their way in, and a couple of
Jiper's been on, right, and Punk.
Yeah, Ghost Ship on it as well.
Nice. Oh, Ghost Ship's on it as well, right? Okay, cool. So, yeah, it's a certain game you have to play, but it's cool that Thornbridge are there. What did you do after you spent grain after mashing?
Dave and Les collect it and feed it to their horses.
Dave and Les. Are you pouring at many beer festivals this year?
Yeah, I have a list of that. Actually, that's a great question. Thank you. So this.
Have you got a pen out, Ruth? You're like, right, let's go.
Yes, this weekend actually. Next weekend, the weekend that's not this weekend. Andy and I are going on a bit of a sort of northern road trip. So we're going to go and brew a couple of collabs. One at Northern Monk and one at Amity. And then we're pouring at Amity Fest and at Rooster's Suds with Buds Fest. And then we'll also be at Craft Theory, which is in Reading, and LCBF, which is our first time appearing at that. I'm a little bit scared. And we'll also have beers at Peakender and at Rivington Farm Fest as well.
Wow, you're everywhere.
And probably more, but those are the ones we're kind of actively involved in at the moment. So Yorkshire people, please come and see us.
Go to the Elusive stand, people. Bertie's on Morris Man?
Oh, no, that's Obi. So Obi is a black lab owned by Tim Lloyd, who is a friend of the brewery and local Morris dancing legend. I assume named after Obi-Wan Kenobi. Guessing.
We haven't even addressed Brad's fetish for Morris Man.
I wouldn't say it's a fetish.
I'd call it a fetish.
It's sort of like folklore, and as I said, I went to the solstice and stuff. I just like all that traditional.
Were there Morris Men there?
Yeah, were. Fucking were, Johnny, actually. So
did they dance?
Why don't you just reel it back in, mate? Because there's whole troops of Morris Men there.
Oh, what do you mean reel it in? I was just interested.
You were having a little. Come on. Anyway, there were Morris Men there. There were also Peruvian panpipers en masse.
That's cool.
En masse. I've only ever seen them on like shop 50
of them. Must have been 50 of them.
Good lord, that's a lot of pipes.
They had panpipes at one point. Another point, just to derail the chat. They had these things that looked like chair legs, but they were like a flute, not a flute, more like a recorder, a chair leg recorder that looked like it only had about 2 or 3 notes, and they were really fucking loud, and I would say off pitch, but en masse. My word, it was quite.
Recorders always are. That's.
Yeah.
I know that this is your dream. I cannot think of anything worse than standing in a cold field in the middle of the night listening to people blowing on chair legs.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. There was a stage. There's a guy. He looks like Fagin or something. He's got a horse-drawn cart stage that he takes around the country on the roads with his horses. And they just had all sorts of different performers up on the stage. But he had really long dreadlocks, a massive sort of sheepskin coat, and he sounded like a pirate. He was incredible as a human being, like amazing. And he'd broken his shoulder or something, so he was like, "I'm kind of useless tonight." But these guys are called the Phantom Noise or something. And then he'd kind of like shuffle on the stage with this massive sheepskin coat and introduce people. And there's amazing jazz, saxophonist Johnny. Incredible. All kinds of musicians there. Lots of drummers.
Jazz sax, I'm in. I'm in on that one.
This jazz sax guy was incredible. But lots of drums, mate.
We'll go in depth. If you don't know that we have a podcast called the Friday 5 p.m., which is essentially 40 minutes of Brad's life in miniature, please do subscribe to the podcast, and we will dig into all of this next week.
I can talk in quite a lot of detail about Morris dancing if you need me to.
Yeah,
are you a Morris dancer fetishist?
The reason I got into beer is because I was a Morris dancing child. I'll make your face.
Wait. We're going solo layout here. Carry on.
So when I was younger, my mum and dad were both Morris dancers, and you get taken to the pub and to Kaylee's and stuff. And so I was very little. I got taken to a Kaylee and put behind the piano in a sleeping bag and just sort of fell asleep there. But then I was older. Then you get to go to the pub, and Morris dancers drink a lot of cask. And so if you're 14 and you want to get a pint, then you drink cask beer, and it kind of all spiral from there.
Are you telling the kids of today that if they want to get served in a pub, go in a Morris dancer costume?
It works. 100% it works. And then you play Morris saxophone. This is a terrible thing to admit to so many people.
And we're going solo layout again. Sorry. You played Morris dancer saxophone.
Hang on, are you saying you actually played saxophone for Morris dancers?
Yeah.
Is that a thing? I've never seen that.
I mean, it's not very common. I also play the recorder, but apparently they're shit and out of tune.
Well, if you like recorders, you need to get the Peruvian guy. They're channeling.
It's like a C melody sax. They're quite rare. But yeah.
This
All
has
is
taken
welcome.
this has taken a turn I fully expected it to.
For you, hasn't it?
Right, we've got behind in the questions. We were saying this is supposed to be quick fire. Dr. Sam asks, any regrets, Andy, about turning your hobby into a hobby/passion into a job?
Yeah, I lost my hobby.
Yeah, that's fair.
No regrets, Sam. I think it was right. I really enjoy what I do, and I don't miss my old career at all. It's like, maybe only partially joking about losing my hobby. It's hard. It can be hard to escape from beer when it's what I do. What I enjoy doing in my spare time is drinking beer and going to breweries and all that, and it can be a bit all-encompassing. But I don't regret that really. It's just kind of is what it is. So no regrets at all.
Yeah, I guess it comes from something you chase to something you avoid sometimes, and hopefully you can try and balance out as the same amount of time you spent on it.
Yeah.
Ruth and Andy, aside from Saison Dupont, what are your all-time favorite beers?
I'll go. I think Duchesse de Bourgogne is probably my, like, if I don't drink one thing until the end of time. Essentially that or Rodenbach Grand Cru. Something Flandersy.
Mm-hmm. It's another style that's never had its time and probably never will, but is done right. A stellar example. I think a lot of interpretations not from Belgium haven't been great and haven't quite nailed that style, and maybe it's put some people off, but it is Rodenbach. And I mean, Duchesse now I actually find too sweet, but Rodenbach I do love. But I used to love Duchesse. It's all about our palates, I guess. Andy, any all-time favorite beers other than?
I think Green Flash West Coast IPA is one I always shout about, and inspired my first ever all grain homebrew was kind of a clone of that, just that classic West Coast. We talked about Russian River. I mean, made the pilgrimage over there twice, and Pliny the Elder is exceptional. It's the beauty of it is in its drinkability for 8%. First time I went there was happy hour at the bar, and
on a Sunday.
It was $3.25 a pint.
It's $4 by the time me and Brad arrived, but it's still
inflation. And it was happy hour was 2 hours, and we had a very very switched on Irish barman. The minute your glass got with about a quarter left, he just slid one on, and that was it. He carried on drinking blindly. And I remember about 4 or 5 pints in, going through to the loo and just wondering where my legs had gone. Supremely drinkable. I love that beer.
I hear the same is true of Pliny the Younger as well, which at 11% is
very nice.
That's really dangerous. Any more collabs in the pipeline?
What did you do on Thursday?
Yes, we brewed with the Colonel and Burning Sky, so that will be coming out for my 50th birthday next month, and we brewed an IPA with them, so look out for that one. That was an incredible experience. Ruth mentioned we're brewing with Northern Monk next week and Amity, so we're brewing a West Coast pale with Northern Monk, part of their patron series, and with Amity is going to be a sour with mango and mango and guava, mango guava sour. And we got collab again coming back this year, which we do every year, that Roosh just started planning for this year, so look out for announcements around that at some point soon. So we've got a couple of collabs lined up for that. Who else are we working with, Ruth? There's probably some Duration. I love Duration. And talking about West Coast, Dripping Pitch is one of my favorites. And we're going to mash together Dripping Pitch and Oregon Trail. So if you like those beers, then look out for that. That's being brewed at the end of July, so probably mid to late August release.
Awesome. Speaking of collabs, putting you on the spot here, we've got one slot, probably one slot left. If
you know where we are.
The only reason I haven't approached you already is because we have collabed with you before, twice. But we do potentially have a slot. So let's converse offline. So maybe, Tom, maybe. I don't know whether to flash this one up. It's probably not a real question. But...
I mean, I didn't take any mushrooms that I'm aware of. But
I recently, as part of the research for my new book, I watched that documentary that's all about mushrooms.
How to change your mind.
Now I'm like, I think I
on
need
Netflix, where they're all linked under the ground.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm starting to think that maybe I need to have a little trip. You know,
Johnny, should we do a new channel which is called? Well, we were going to do the what was it? My high
called
one?
White Guy in His Garden Tries Magic Mushrooms.
We're not going to do it in the garden, mate. We're going to do it in Stonehenge next
Stonehenge, mate. You Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. No, what was the channel? The craft gear channel we were going to do.
Craft gear channel was an idea we mooted and immediately dismissed. Chris Warloss, have you thought about brewing a gruit? That would sell great, right? People don't like hops anymore, I've heard.
Already brewed one, Andy.
What?
Have I imagined that? But for Bracknell Beer Festival or something.
Yeah, it rings a bell. In that case, it would have been on the pilot kit.
Like 8 years ago, like a long time ago. So, well, not 8 years ago.
We might have dabbled a long time ago. We've done beers with. We did also did a wit beer. A Thai-inspired wit beer that was all herbs and spices, pretty much. So yeah, we've dabbled.
So it's not a no. What are you showing, Bradley?
I'm trying to show you the Fagin guy. Look at that.
That's not how I remember Fagin. Fagin with dreadlocks is.
He's Fagin with dreadlocks on his little horse-drawn car. It was incredible. It really was incredible. So good. So good.
You've done double Oregon Trail. Will there be a triple? Oh, right. Oh, God, he's literally nodding. Right. Good. When's that out?
We're going to do... Can I talk about this, Ruth? Or
yeah, they're going to launch at LCBF. So 11th and 12th of August. So, yeah, carry on.
Amazing. Well, I'm hosting tastings all weekend, and hopefully Brad's joining me on the Friday to do a live Friday 5 p.m. Haven't told Brad that, I don't think. So we'll try and get hold of some and do a tasting. We'll tell the world what Triple Oregon Trail.
It's Triple Oregon Trail and what's the other one?
It's called Sunset Oregon Trail, which is a red IPA. So the trilogy is coming back for a second iteration in August.
Awesome news. That's exciting. That's very exciting. Right. So the last thing we have to do, as Paul Reeve has literally just pointed out, is we haven't talked about Imperial Morris Man whatsoever. So we've got a couple of minutes. Please, if you've got any last questions, send them in. If you've got any last super chats, you want to support the channel, if you want to join our Patreon, if you want to do whatever it is you want to do, please do. But Andy or Ruth, can you give us a quick spiel about Imperial Morris Man that we're drinking right now?
So Ruth talked about Tim Lloyd, who's the Morris Man, and if you get the regular Morris Man, we've got an 8-bit pixel version of Tim with his dog Obi on the can. This one is brewed. So we brewed that beer in collaboration with Emperor's Brewery, which is a little tiny 20-liter commercial kit that happens to be one of the highest rated breweries in the world on Untapped. If you follow Untapped, So Damien came down and brewed that with us with Tim. So it's basically a double version of Morris Man. With this beer, we use so much chocolate throughout the whole process. Really, we match with chocolate. It's got cacao. It's got pure extract. It's got just layered chocolate throughout. With the Imperial, we added a lot more oats. The same base grist, but kind of a bit more oaty to give it some body and try and hide that alcohol a little bit. But other than that, it's kind of a double version of the regular Morris Man. We also, and it's available on the web shop, we've got a barrel aged version. So when we brewed this. This is the second time we brewed Imperial. We basically blended some of that bourbon barrel back into a version, a released barrel aged version. So we've got both out at the moment. So it's just a mega chocolatey stout, basically.
I presume that the general finishing gravities of an Emperor's beer is 3 or 4 times what it is. What was he bringing to the mix?
He's got I mean, the base recipes we kind of merged with his base stout recipe with Morris Man. He's bringing a lot of experience around brewing strong beers, and he's worked with Omnipollo, he's worked with all the best stout brewers, and the final gravities are nuts. The highest I've ever heard was Siren did their 3C stout series, and the collab with Omnipollo finished at 1100.
I think that's pretty standard from Omnipollo.
And when you pour it into the glass and you spin it in your glass, kind of like that, it just went brown. Like your glass was just covered in it's like syrup. And you drink it and you get a sugar high along with the booze hit. Phenomenal brewing. But they do that. Omnipollo in particular do mega long boils, like 36 hours. I think Ruth would have kittens if she saw the Lecky bill if I did that. So we won't be doing 36 hour boils.
To make sure it's not boiled over.
What Damien brought was a lot of experience on brewing those high gravities and getting all that flavor in. So great brew.
Yeah, I mean it's a delicious beer. It's really like sometimes you can talk about nuanced flavor notes, but this is just chocolatey as fuck, really, isn't it? There's not. What's Brad matching with it now?
Cookies,
there you go.
Nice.
I think these are superior for like supermarket cookies. They're pretty
Fox's
good.
biscuits.
The Fox's ones. They're dipped. They're dipped chocolate cookies.
This is where the comment section again implodes. We've had Mao. Now we're on to Fox's. All the craft confectionery producers from Bradley. A question did come in. This is a nice question to finish on, actually, from Barry. Is there any beer or style that you've always wanted to make but haven't done? Not necessarily because it's not profitable, but is there a style that you'd love to make or a beer that you'd love to make that you haven't yet?
Ooh, there's a question. I'd love to. I mean, I know I love black IPAs, and I'd love to brew like a super imperial black, 10%, something like that, and really just pile hops into it, and try and produce something that's just the most intense dark beer ever. We've not done that yet, and that would be expensive, particularly with the duty changes coming in August. That's going to be even trickier to brew the stronger ones. In terms of things I've wanted to do but haven't, I'd like to play more with smoke, but they are super hard to sell. It's not so much expense, but more the commercial viability. Shout out to Torside, who do loads of great smoke beers.
Viability be damned to make it work, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I love smoking meat and all the various wood that you use for that, your cherry wood and your apple wood and your walnut and all kinds of stuff can impart loads of great flavor that would potentially work in beers. I'd also say I've always wanted to brew with tamarind and some other weird spices. We did a mango tamarind sour we did up at Heist last year. We dabbled a little bit with those flavors, but tamarind smoked paprika, really love to get that into a recipe. Fun stuff like that, really, rather than styles, more just ingredients that I love to work, things that I like eating to bring into a beer.
There we go. Well, watch out for the tamarind black double IPA. Actually, it's a video we did Brad, are you dunking? Jesus. A long time ago, we did a video about 1050, which is to all intents and purposes an imperial stout, but it's so fucking heavily hopped. It was kind of like a 10% black IPA, and it's still one of my favorite beer memories to have an imperial stout that hoppy, that resinous as well. So I hope you go ahead with that, Andy. That would be a great beer to have in the UK. A commercial disaster, but I'd enjoy it.
Ruth always says to me, "You can brew what you like as long as I can sell it. Then that's fine."
Well, everything in small batches.
Yeah.
There you go. See, do it while you're still small, Andy, because Oregon Trail is going to take you to the moon. It's been an absolute pleasure having you both on the channel tonight. I hope everybody's really enjoyed it. I hope you've learned lots about one of your favorite breweries. And if you didn't know Elusive before, Elusive are one of the absolute hidden treasures of the craft beer industry in the UK. Like, fantastic beer, diverse styles as you've heard, a great approach to both to brewing and to selling and to marketing. You know, there's so much exciting stuff going on, and it's very different to a lot of other people out there. So I'm really glad we've been able to tell you a story. Haven't been a Patreon for so long as well. I can't thank you enough, and it's been a pleasure being able to put you on the channel for a good 2 hours. So maybe there's a collab in the works, who knows? But yeah, it's been lovely, and I really hope the absolute best for you guys, because you're one of the most important breweries for me in the scene. So thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Not at all. So yeah, don't forget there is a code on the web shop of Elusive. I'm digging it out. I'm digging out that. There it is. So 10%, you just got to use CBC10 until the 9th of July on any order over £50. Please do use that. Please do support your local and independent and ethical breweries. Well, local, you might not be local to Finch Hampstead, but small and ethical, they definitely are. And of course, please do come to our beer festival. Tickets are right there if you want to grab them. Our next live show is still in the works. We think we have the brewery. We don't have the date yet, so we'll announce that as soon as we can. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us for this evening's frivolities. I can't remember who's headlining Glastonbury, but they'll probably be shit compared to this. So enjoy the rest of the beers, and we will see you on Wednesday for another upload and a Friday 5 p.m. next week. Cheers, everybody. Love and beer.
Love and beer.